Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video, and we've got our final Dark Side clone. Scorch is on his way. We're going to look at the insights and tips, break down and analyze the kit, quick look at the gear, and then wrap up with the synergies of the squad. Scorch arrives to the Hollow Tables as a Darkside Empire Clone Trooper tank, and he will be providing those tanking services under Lord Vader or Tarkin, with those Darkside Clone Troopers completing the squad. With his attributes, he also has a new buff called Bulwark, which will be functioning similar to Reinforced Hull does with ships, where we are getting extra defense per stack and we lose stacks when we get hit. Strategy tips: the Breaching Charge applies an area of effect damage over time that ties into the potentials of Disguised Clone Trooper and Lord Vader. Entrenched recovers health and protection and gains that new buff, and Scorch's defense capabilities are going to be boosted in Grand Arena and boosted by the Darkside clones. Grand Arena is going to be both 5v5 and 3v3, and CG suggests the divide with Tarkin, and we're going to get into more of that. He is going to make Tarkin better. And like with the other clones, we're going to need him at Relic 5 for that upcoming Jedi Master Mace Windu event. Breaking down and analyzing the kit: the basic ability, Exterminate with Extreme Prejudice. Physical damage to the target and cleanse all debuffs from a random debuffed Empire ally. And if the target had Order 66, reduce the cooldowns of a random other non-Galactic Legend Empire ally. So a random cleanse and a conditional random cooldown reduction, that's a strong basic. It mitigates control-based counters, speeds up the threat level on the specials, but the RNG component is going to keep it from being overpowered, and that's a good thing. Notable that the squad doesn't have an assist call on specials though. That seems very purposeful because of this basic. We will speak to this more on the unique ability though, where there is a conditional assist call. But if there is ever a datacron that adds counters, assists, retribution, it's going to be powerful with Scorch, and you will want it because of how strong this basic ability has the potential to be. Our first special, Breaching Charge, a cooldown of 3. AoE physical damage and inflict 2 stacks of damage over time and off balance for 2 turns. So that's very light on the mechanics for a special, but those 2 damage over times will add how quickly Order 66 gets applied to enemies, and thus how quickly the basic ability can potentially reduce cooldowns. And also, it's going to help ensure the number of damage over time stays high and persistent, which is just going to add to how quickly that Order 66 can be reapplied, because Apo applies Order 66 when the target has 8 stacks of damage over time or more. And off balance, that was from the Spectre characters kits. I believe Padawan Sabine had it the first time. The off balance will add a small amount of control because it has a little turn meter removal, but also builds on the health damage consequences of this squad. With our second special, Entrenched, this is cooldown of 4, and that's a little high, so that chance of a cooldown reduction is going to be very much desired. With this ability, Scorch taunts for 2 turns, recovers 25% health and protection, and gains 5 stacks of Bulwark. So that's a taunt, some recovery, and a defensive boost, all from this ability. At the battle start, if there is an ally Lord Vader or Grand Moff Tarkin is the leader, Bulwark can't be dispelled or prevented. That's just Bulwark though. It's notable that taunt can still be dispelled and prevented. So while yes, you can't stop Bulwark, if we can prevent taunt, we may be able to get around it or ignore it until it expires, or let weaker abilities or AoEs take out the stacks. But as we will see from the unique ability, we're not going to want to dispel the taunt. It's better to just circumvent it or prevent it from happening. And the rest, the Darkside clone allies gain protection up, and what Bulwark does is plus 150% defense per stack, and we lose 1 stack of Bulwark when receiving damage. So this will be the second turn ability. Use the first turn to add damage over times to the field so that we can more easily apply Order 66 rather than adding the survivability with Bulwark. His unique is also going to allow him to tank the initial volley, and then we can use this ability to recover and then boost the defense on the second turn. Our unique ability, following protocol, this is a Zeta and Omicron ability. At each encounter start, Scorch taunts. And this is part of the reason why Breaching Charge on the first turn is the way to go. He's already going to to be taunting, we don't need to use entrenched. And while Scorch is taunting, he's going to get plus 25% defense and tenacity, and whenever he loses taunt, he gains plus 25% bonus protection. So this is nice and maybe something to build mods around, stack on that strength of defense. But the taunt isn't going to be super persistent because of that 4-turn cooldown, so maybe not a main feature. What I see here is we have a lot of mechanics that will help us bridge the time between taunts, with Bulwark, the bonus protection, as well as stealth on the other characters. And while he has Bulwark, he's going to be immune to speed down, staggers, and stun. So that's going to minimize the control on the squad. And remember, Bulwark can't be prevented, so this makes Bulwark even more powerful, and may mean we want to deal with Scorch before he gets Bulwark up, where he will be far easier to deal with when he doesn't have it. So we can either stun him or get buff immunity on him prior to him taking those turns. It may make him more effective to navigate. And the fact that Bulwark means he's immune to speed down, staggers, and stuns, that tells me we want him fast. He's not going to be one of those tanks we keep slower. We're going to put as many fast defensive mods on him as we can. This next portion I alluded to when we were talking about the second special. Whenever an enemy dispels taunt from Scorch, they are inflicted with Order 66 for 2 turns. That's unresistible. If that enemy was a Jedi, that Order 66 lasts 4 turns. So it's nice to have another means of inflicting Order 66 and a consequence to removing the taunt, one that we can exploit by choosing our matchups. Teams that have buff dispel, particularly teams with a dispel on basic, they could get very much hurt by this. So we can choose our matchups accordingly. And if we're on offense, we're going to be better off preventing it or accepting it rather than removing it, where counters that can ignore taunt might be particularly valuable. Whenever a damage over time inflicted by Scorch expires, he gains 10% bonus protection. There's going to be a lot of bonus protection here, so no single bonus protection mechanic is significant, but there's totality of them adding up on his kit. Now for the Tarkin portion of this kit, at the battle start, if there is an ally Grand Moff Tarkin, Tarkin gains plus 200% potency. Scorch assists whenever Tarkin uses an ability, and the first time Tarkin would be defeated, he instead gains Deflective Ward for 2 turns or until he receives damage, and then recovers 50% health and protection. That's a big boost to Tarkin. Tarkin's damage is based off of his potency, so we're looking at a significant increase in his damage output. And remember, from Scorch's basic, it randomly cleanses, and when you hit someone with Order 66, he randomly reduces the cooldowns of an ally. So Scorch assisting whenever Tarkin takes a turn increases the chances that Tarkin is doing his big AoE damage every couple of turns. And this synergy alone means we will want to keep Scorch with Tarkin. This is going to be very interesting to test once 3v3 returns. Our Omicron Grand Arena, Scorch gains 50% max health, protection, and tenacity. Whenever he loses taunt, all dark side clone allies recover 15% health and protection. So they're a little bit more ready to absorb any damage after that taunt goes away. And whenever he gains taunt, he cleanses all debuffs on himself, and all other clone allies gain 10% turn meter. So they're speeding up when that taunt is expired. Whenever he uses Entrenched, he gains an additional 5 stacks of Bulwark. So that's a ton of added defense, and it's just going to stick around that much longer. And the first time each other non-Galactic Legend Empire ally is reduced to 50% health, Scorch will taunt for 2 turns, and ally will recover 100% health and protection. If you care about Grand Arena, this is a must-have Omicron that's with or without Lord Vader. It's just going to be better under Lord Vader, and you're going to want to have Scorch at high relics. The higher, the better. He's going to be that much more of a pain to deal with, because with a Lord Vader squad in particular, we're kind of forced into either attacking Scorch or Vader. Everybody else, there are reasons not to go after them, and going after Scorch, we're going to want him to be a bigger pain. And it might mean that we're probably looking at counters that allow us to ignore taunt and Bulwark rather than having to fight through them. But one thing this Omicron does is it puts a downside in doing that. if we try to circumvent the taunt and circumvent Bulwark and we're just going after Lord Vader, well now, there's going to be a recovery trigger at 50% health that forces another taunt and more mechanics with the Bulwark, and that's also going to exist on every other character. Scorch is mostly backloaded when it comes to his gear. He has Kairos, a choke point, 2 of them at gear 10. He's got 1 at gear 9. He's got very easy earlier tiers, and even by old standards, Scorch is very light on Carbantes, stun guns, stun cuffs, which if you're starting from nothing, those are still a pain because you just need a ton of them. And as far as tanks goes, he is very easy. At gear 12 though, it's pretty spread out. Med packs are the worst. You need 2 of them, but only 1 fusion furnace, and it is the computer finisher, which is the easier of the 2. Overall, he's below average, and I think it's been a while since we've had a character who was meaningfully difficult to gear up to relics. We haven't even had like a 4 relic or a 4 Cairo character in a while. Now that we have our final clone plus the rework to Tarkin, we can now have a proper discussion on how this squad actually functions. Now with Tarkin, we're not going to do an in-depth breakdown of the kit. I don't think too much has happened, but we are going to talk about some of the changes here. With the basic ability, Tarkin is getting an additional 10% damage for each active Darkside Clone Trooper ally. That's going to help bring his damage to the endgame. Plus, this potency stacking mechanic is going to go from 50% to 100% potency stacking. Now also remember, from Scorch's unique, he's bringing an additional 200% potency. That all goes to his ultimate firepower ability, where the damage output is related to how much potency he has. Plus, with the basic mechanic, with Scorch assisting if Tarkin is the leader, we are going to see a situation where Tarkin is going to have the cooldown on ultimate firepower potentially reduce that much faster. Plus, in a 3v3 context, that could happen pretty quickly. What used to happen with this ability is Tarkin would gain offense equal to double Tarkin's potency percentage. Now Tarkin is going to do more damage equal to double Tarkin's potency percentage, which means special offense, physical offense, critical damage, special damage. That's all getting boosted. On top of all that, if it's all Darkside clones, he's going to do an additional instance of damage equal to the same conditions of double Tarkin's potency, which we have boosted from the basic and we have boosted from Scorch being on the squad. With the second special, this is a small change, but it's a meaningful change. What used to be a granting of buffs of critical chance down and offense down, that has now switched to Tactical Supremacy, which is a far better buff. Tactical Supremacy gives additional critical damage and potency, which further boosts Tarkin. Plus it gives recovery, and when it expires, you're going to get advantage and foresight. So there's a lot of mechanics that are happening just from that singular buff. So you have a boost while it's present, or if it's dispelled, then you get different advantages. With the leadership ability, he got a little bit of stat boost. Now there's going to be additional health and protection. Plus he got an Omicron, a 3v3 Ami that we can pair with Scorch. And this Ami we will break down. So in 3v3, at the start of the encounter, allied Darkside Clone Trooper supports will stealth, that's going to be disguised. Darkside Clone Trooper tanks gain protection up. So he's going to have, on top of already being taunting and having the extra defense that he gets from taunting, he's going to have protection up. And Scorch is going to gain 5 stacks of Bulwark at the start of the encounter. Now at this point, I don't know if we need to have this Omicron. It's going to make him better, but this is a boost rather than an essential one with those components. Whenever a Darkside Clone Trooper ally uses a special, Tarkin assists. That's another one where I don't think it's a big deal, but it does help a little bit because potency is stacking with Tarkin using his basic, so it does help. And whenever an enemy evades or resists a debuff from Darkside Clone Trooper allies, Tarkin's going to gain turn meter and recover health. That's small, don't really care about it. Whenever Intimidation Tactics is used, that's the second special, he's going to dispel buffs on all enemies and inflict them with daze for 2 turns. Now that I actually like, because that ability is rather small. It's just kind of swapping out the buffs into Tactical Supremacy, which is a better buff, but it's still kind of a small special. Now that special is a Dispel and an AoE Daze. That's a lot more. And then the strongest part is what it does to Ultimate Firepower. It's an AoE Fear now. That now takes this Ami to a portion where it is far more valuable than the first portion. The first portion's nice, but it's not huge. Really, it's about the boost to what it is doing to the special abilities, and that is significant. And it also stops revives. That's whatever. That matters only just because certain squads have revive mechanics, but it's not that many. So it's like nice. You know what's nice about it actually? There are certain situations where I find that I do want it, but I don't have the characters to use it, because some of the characters that have those anti-revive mechanics are extremely valuable. Like we're talking Gas, we're talking Treo with Nihilus, we are talking Malicos. And those are primarily going to be used up against very meaningful squads, strong squads. So sometimes you may not have the anti-revive mechanic when you need it because some of those other squads aren't warranted to be countered that way with something so strong. This might bring us a anti-revive mechanic down to a level where I actually might find some value in it. That's what I'm hoping for. With his unique ability, it's going to be expanded in such a way that it's just going to make him more relevant to the endgame. A number of stat increases and some recovery changes. That's just going to make him that much more resilient and dangerous. At the start of the battle, Tarkin is going to gain 50% potency stacking for each other Empire ally and all the associated offensive benefits, and also defensive benefits. Now, this mechanic existed before with defense equal to his potency, but now it's being expanded where it used to be 20% potency per debuffed enemy. Now it is going to be 20% bonus potency stacking for each debuffed enemy. So as the battle goes along and Scorch is taunting, Tarkin is going to get more and more resilient as the battle goes on in a way that he never did before. At the start of each encounter, Tarkin is going to gain protection up for 2 turns, which is going to buy him time to become more defensive. And the first time Tarkin falls below 50% health, he gains bonus protection 50% for 3 turns. But also remember from Scorch's mechanic, he's also going to trigger Scorch to taunt, and he's going to recover his own health and protection back to 100%, then get that bonus protection on top. And whenever an Empire ally inflicts a debuff, Tarkin recovers 5% health and protection, and that also means he's stacking that potency. So with all those changes to Tarkin, he's just going to be relevant to the endgame, and he's going to be a pretty solid 3v3 leader. But in 3v3, we're going to be using Disguise Clone Trooper, and this might take me a second because we need to have a refresher on everything that is going on with Disguise, because if you're like me, I basically forgot everything in the couple weeks since we've seen Disguise. So the big mechanics with Disguise Clone Trooper is Stealth, Ruse, and Retribution. Also, we need to have a reminder on how Order 66 works with Disguise. So Clever Ruse, this unique ability is how both Ruse works and Retribution works. They're both related to Stealth. If he has Stealth, at the end of the turn, he is going to gain Ruse until the end of that turn. If he is Stealthed, when the enemy takes a turn, they are going to inflict Retribution onto the clone allies. And we need to remember what is happening with Scorch. When he uses his basic ability, he's going to be cleansing and having a random chance at cooldown reduction on an ally, which is just going to speed everything up. So now we have a retribution mechanic. They're going to be forced into attacking Scorch. He's going to be countering and reducing the cooldowns, which is going to allow us to use the specials more regularly. Also, Ruse will be on the field when he is under stealth. The other thing to understand is the stealth mechanics. If he has stealth, he will lose stealth when he attacks. If he doesn't have stealth, after he attacks, he will gain stealth. And that's important because we need to remember what's happening with the basic ability, because this relates to Order 66. He needs to have Ruse, because when he has Ruse, he is able to stun. And when he's stealthed, he has Ruse. And if the target enemy was stunned, or ability block, but nobody here applies ability block, and we have Grand Moff Tarkin in a full squad, he is going to be able to inflict Order 66 for 2 turns on that stunned character. So now we have another mechanic for inflicting Order 66, the other one being in 3v3 when the taunt gets dispelled. Now there's 2. But in 5v5, we're going to have friends with CX2. The way that Order 66 works, you target the same enemy 3 times in a row, and then CX2 will turn that into an Order 66, and Apo is going to be one of the easiest ones. This one just needs the enemy to have 8 stacks of damage over time. Then when he uses no witnesses, he is going to turn that into Order 66 on the target enemy. The other thing to remember is this ability also triggers all the damage over time stacks, and we are going to have a lot of help from Scorch with an AoE to inflict another 2 stacks of damage over time. And we also have from Disguise Kit, when he uses his AoE ability, he's doing extra damage for each stack of damage over time. So now between Lord Vader, between Disguised, Scorch, Apo, with all of these damage over times around, and CX2 can do it as well, but it's targeted. Now there's a lot of potential for all those dots to turn into big damage. And while all of that is going on, Lord Vader is charging his ultimate if we're using Lord Vader as our lead. Because we have these mechanics where CX2 is going to be under stealth most of the time, Disguise Clone Trooper is going to be fairly consistently under stealth. Apo we can't take out if Lord Vader is the leader, so we have to just it's essentially just better to ignore him. So we are now in a position where we have to either attack Lord Vader or attack Scorch, which is why it's valuable to just ignore the taunt and go after Lord Vader. But remember, you knock him down to 50%, he's going to recover, and you have to take him out again. Or you're just going after Scorch, which is why it's valuable to have him at high relic, so he's just tanking and absorbing all of that damage. And if you put that Ami on, he's just going to have a ton of bulwark you have to get through first before you can actually hurt him. And if you're not using Lord Vader and you're using Tarkin, you can go after Apo, take Apo out, but he's also going to have his Nightfall Trooper that is going to be annoying. And you could go after Tarkin, but there's also going to be the situation with Tarkin, he's gaining all those stats. He's going to become more and more defensive, so you do want to go after him instead of going after Scorch. Because if you wait too long, he's going to be that much harder to take out. Just kind of like what's going on with the Night Sisters, where you can see with Daka, her defense stacking the longer and longer you wait. I am really excited for these characters, having all of them in the game, and just kind of playing around and seeing what we can do with them in 5v5. It's going to be a little riskier in 5v5. We're still going to put that Ami on and try things and do the testing that we usually do. We were able to do it in 3v3 and Lord Vader worked fine. Now, Scorch is going to be a little bit more vulnerable, but we're still going to throw him in and see what we can do. And I'm hoping that with the era battles, we get a little lucky on those drops so we can get him a little further along. Like you saw in the squad portion where my stars were on Apo and CX2, got really good drops on them. Not so much on Disguised. I only received 7 shards on Disguised. It was very minimal so far. But after we do all that, we're going to have a roster video upcoming to reflect all those changes. I've stayed holding back on resources until that happens, like down period between Grand Arenas, so there's no rush. But in the meantime, because of Conquest videos, I'll put up one of the sectors and we'll do maybe an overview video. Actually, you know, we'll do the overview video and the Datacron video, but just know that we also have sector by sector videos breaking down all of the feats, the data discs, the squads I was using. But thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.